Welcome to the Motoring Podcast, your weekly discussion of motoring news. This is episode 68 on Tuesday, the 18th of October, 2016. Hello, I'm Alan.
Hello, I'm Andrew. And how are you doing?
Very much surviving, clinging on. Yeah.
Okay.
A bit like that.
Okay. Right.
So,
sounds like you're having about as good a week as Volkswagen are.
I'm probably having a better week than Volkswagen. Yes, very much having a better week than Volkswagen, because the British government, oh God, that was so smooth, I can't help but break it up by pointing it out to everyone. The British government are launching, well, they're not really, sorry.
Yeah, no, there's been a lot of flapping from the British government is what there's been.
Yes, the slightly clickbaity, sorry guys, headline on this autocar story is that the British government could prosecute a Volkswagen group, and the British government are making lots and lots of noise about have they treated customers fairly, are Volkswagen are they paying any costs related to the recall and the fixing of vehicles? Are they doing all that kind of thing, or should they be paying compensation? Now, as we've said many times on this show, and I can't believe I'm pretty much entering into this in a rant. They wrote a letter and they spoke to some people, but I mean the fact remains that unless I've missed something in here, then they haven't actually broken the law in the UK, to the best of my knowledge.
Finally, somebody has pointed out where they may possibly be, Volkswagen may be exposed and may be liable for legal action to be pursued, which is the Sale of Goods Act 1979. Now, I haven't had a chance to speak to the person who I know that knows this act really well to delve deeper into this, but I'm surprised we're well over a year later.
Yeah.
And it's only sort of coming out that it might be an angle for people to sue VW at. I don't think the feeling I've got, if you've got all these ambulance chasers who've been out there desperately wanting to get a hold of the millions that they feel Volkswagen could pay out, someone would have found something before now.
It would have been brought up. Yeah, absolutely. I feel that if it's sort of being muttered about in the third last paragraph and
let's not forget who mentioned it is the Transport Select Committee, who have not exactly covered themselves in glory in this whole effort because of the way they have been politicians about it, some of them, where they've tried to make points that weren't points, and they failed to grasp basics, even though they've had it explained to them a couple of times. So, if I hear that from them, I'm going to go, well, there's a lot of things I don't trust what you say because I know they're wrong, so am I going to trust this?
I agree. Completely agree. So yeah, that's going out. There's lots of noise. There's not really anything else. We'll keep an eye on it, and I'll let you know what happens.
Yes, it's a very easy way for the government to look as though they're doing something without actually doing something.
Yeah, totally. But in the US, meanwhile,
they're a little bit more proactive over there.
Well, yeah. But the state of Missouri has sat back for a little while and let some of the other states get started on this. The state of Missouri sued Volkswagen on Monday, becoming the 17th US state to take legal action against the German automaker over diesel emissions. So that's in there.
Yep, so we'll see how that one goes.
That's good.
But there's, right now as we speak, as we record this, the summing up or final decision is being made about Volkswagen's compensation and remedial actions for customers who've bought their cars.
Mm-hmm.
And we will come back on that one next week when we actually, because I saw some things being mentioned, but we haven't had a chance to actually look at the results of it to make anything back on that, but that's happening right now. So that'll be interesting to see. I'm presuming they're just going to say yes. Everybody's pretty much agreed, so that'll do.
I would imagine so, and I noticed that according to Automotive News, they're saying that there's at least 4 other US states and as well as Washington State, they're meant to have settlement talks starting no later than November the 1st. So I would imagine that next week there'll be more very similar news, and probably into the week after that as well. Yep.
But then, the power of a word, Alan.
Oh, power of a word.
And the power of this podcast. It grows now to influence nations.
Yeah. Okay. If you insist. People may well have noticed over the weekend the German government have requested that Tesla stop using the term autopilot in the advertising for its vehicles in Germany. And this particular statement in question comes from the German Transport Minister, Alexander Dobrindt, and is basically saying that look, the term autopilot people think means that they can set and forget, and that they don't have to pay full attention to what's going on. Now, in response to that, Tesla have said that the term autopilot, describing in the words of Automotive News here, a system operating in conjunction with a human driver has been used in aerospace for decades. And they're pointing out they've always made it clear that the assistance system required drivers to pay attention at all times. The KBA in Germany, which is the Federal Motor Transport Authority, also wrote to the owners of all Tesla cars, pointing out that the system shouldn't be operated without their constant attention, and that they must remain alert in the meantime. As Bild am Sonntag report, letter from KBA to Tesla, said that in order to prevent misunderstanding and incorrect customers' expectations, we demand that the misleading term autopilot is no longer used in advertising the system. So that's the wording that has been used. So it's a little bit stronger than just a request.
Yes. Everybody knows our feelings about it.
Yes.
And should we move on?
Yes, let's.
Right, I'm coming off my long run.
Okay, I'll just let you get on with it. I'll go do something else, and I'll come back in 5 minutes once you're just simmering down again, shall I?
No, this will be quite quick.
Okay, that's good.
This will be quite quick, but
that's a relief, everyone.
It was launched the other day, the public consultation for the ultra-low emission zone in London, with trying to work out how people feel this should be implemented, because we mentioned a couple of shows ago about how the results came out that essentially if you ask people, would you like clean air, they are going to answer yes, of which from that the politicians and the Office of the Mayor of London has deemed that as the green light to introduce extra taxes on motorists. I've gone through the whole questionnaire, and it is purely how soon should we make it? Do you agree we should have it? Should we include these vehicles? Should these vehicles be exempt? And that's essentially but it's going to happen. Essentially, it is going to happen, and it is only a matter of when. And there again is nothing mentioned about encouraging people not to go into the centre of London in the first place. Which, again, I'm not going to go on for ages, but this needs to be a more holistic This is a battle that needs to be fought on many fronts, and just taxing people is not the way to make any real difference unless you just want to line the coffers.
Yes, quite. That said, they are at least going through the motions, and a second round of consultation begins in...
No, it's open.
I was going to say begins
right
in
now.
October. It's already open, isn't it? Because the page I've got here is from the 13th of September, and there'll be links to the results and to this next set of proposal will be in the show notes.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. Sorry, that was actually a question rather than a demand. So yeah, go have a little bit of a look at that.
Yes. So should we move on to the new news?
Yes, let's. That's quite. We've been relatively light on follow up the last couple of weeks, so that's been quite nice. But this one here, to be honest, this next one could be classified as follow up as well, because what's the date today? So last week, just the end of last week, there was a meeting in 10 Downing Street between our Prime Minister, Theresa May, and Nissan, actually Renault-Nissan Chief Executive Carlos Ghosn, to discuss what was going to happen in any sort of British exit from the EU. It's worth mentioning that this is important enough for the Prime Minister and the Chief Executive of two very large car firms to meet, because the Sunderland factory alone, Nissan, employs about 7,000 people. It makes about 500,000 cars a year, and about 80% of those are exported, not just to Europe, but to about 130 countries around the world. So, any kind of new trade deals, any kind of new tariffs on the UK, import and export tariffs that come in, will make a huge difference to Nissan and to Renault. And we all think about Sunderland, we all think about the factory up there. It's worth remembering that that Nissan also has not just the factory, but also its Research and Development Centre, Nissan Technical Centre Europe at Cranfield in Bedfordshire. It has some sales and marketing in Rickmansworth in Hertfordshire, and as well as that, it has the Design Centre at Paddington in London.
Yes, it does encompass quite a large area, and yes, it is not just Sunderland. But the words that were used in the statements following the meeting very nearly meant things. They were cleverly written.
They were.
The meeting was positive and productive. Well, it's, when you're talking about trying to save lots of jobs, you're not going to go negative, are you, in your first meeting?
No.
And things... Well, I thought this was a telling quote from Ghosn, where he says, "I welcome their commitment to the development of an industrial strategy for Britain."
Yeah, I mean...
Not they have one. Not, oh, now I know what the plan is. No, I'm happy that they are thinking about making a plan. That the idea of a plan is a good idea as far as they're concerned.
Mm-hmm.
So,
can we move on from this depressing cluster because sadly all of this kind of thing is in the hands of the politicians, and there's nothing we can do about it anymore.
No, you're right.
So
I'll only get all very doomy and gloomy.
It is very doomy and gloomy and very, very difficult for everyone. Yes, it is very difficult for everyone. That's as far as I'm going to stop now.
Right. Well, on better news.
Yes.
Investment.
Yay.
Investment. Yes, the government announced in the last week that they will invest £35.75 million into various aspects of low-emission vehicles, or the ownership thereof.
Yes.
Of which 30 million is to go to installing charge points for electric vehicles. 20 million of that is going to go to councils to install chargers for plug-in hybrids and electric taxis. So maybe we can avert the giant EV FEV war of 2017 that is on the horizon.
Yes, quite.
People with tasers will be attacking, other people and putting bananas over the electric points.
You've given me. I've got this image of this guy in sort of brownie clothes and organic sandals, going up to an Outlander owner and going, "Eat my volts," and attacking him with this taser. Sorry.
He's angry because his beard is very quivering.
I'm so sorry, EV drivers.
No, but I think that underlines how ridiculous it all is, the silliness that's going on.
Yes.
But getting back to the
sorry.
news, but then there'll be another 10 million that will be put forward for workplaces and residential areas that don't have off-street parking to be able to install chargers there.
Yeah, this is good.
3.75 million is going to go towards electric motorcycles and scooters, which they say is just an initial investment. So I think if there is a big uptake on this, then they can put more money that way. So that seems a very sensible thing.
That's great. Because it's that one slices both ways. Not only do you get rid of some of the sort of two-strokey pollution there, but you also get rid of all the flipping noise pollution that tinny scooters can make.
Yeah. And then now this is the disappointing bit for me.
Only
though,
2 million.
2 million is earmarked to encourage businesses to adopt hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. Well, what will encourage people or businesses and people to adopt them is if there suddenly is an infrastructure.
2 million is not going to buy much infrastructure. That, to me...
That wouldn't get you an installation of a recharging plant.
It would get... I'm thinking 1 or 2. That's all it would give you.
Very lucky with when you've paid for planning permission and everything like that. I think you'd be lucky to get 1 out of that.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think that's the bit that's disappointing for me, because I think having listened to what you've had to say about hydrogen and hearing Gareth Jones when he's mentioned it on his podcast, I think it's a really, really interesting technology which is viable for a lot of people.
Did you see my tweet last week, by the way? So at the end of last week, when I was in Oslo, and you were having fun, I was crossing the road in Oslo, and I was kind of staring at the display of Ionics outside Oslo Central Station, and a Mirai went past, yellow and sort of the body was wrapped in some advertising some company, and I went, "Oh, a Mirai." And it was only a couple of seconds later I went, "Holy heck, that was a Mirai, and it wasn't covered in Toyota branding." I was like, "Oh, it's too late to get a picture." It disappeared off around the corner, and but yeah, I was shocked to see one actually on the road, because the only other times I've seen hydrogen fuel cell cars on the road outside of events was when I was driving one for a weekend. But yeah, I have to say, I'm sorely disappointed by that bit at the end there. Sorely disappointed.
Absolutely. Especially when you look at countries like the one you were in and how much they have targeted.
Well, yes, and that leads neatly into into our next story, actually. About the government is planning Clean Air Zone and talking about giving electric cars priority at traffic lights, exempted from one-way systems, and a number of other buys, essentially. And I read this and I thought, well, that's ridiculous, as I tend to.
Well, I think that's a sensible default position to be in.
Yes, well, it's worked for you for many years. And
I see no downside with it whatsoever.
And the more I thought about it, and then I was in Oslo last week. So this was announced earlier last week. Yeah, 14th. So it was like Wednesday, Thursday last week. And then I was in Oslo, and I looked around, and I looked at the bits where the EVs are allowed to go in the bus lanes, and sometimes the bus lane goes the opposite way to the one-way system and that kind of thing. And I thought, hang on a minute here. That's exactly what's being proposed. Really, if it's done properly, then you get the same setup as you have in Oslo, where sure, there's EVs are allowed to use the bus lanes. They're allowed to park in for free. They're allowed to charge for free over there. But that's never going to happen in the UK. Or very unlikely to happen in the UK. And all that kind of thing. And I thought, well, actually, that's all that people are proposing, really. There's nothing different. I mean, the fact that we won't implement it. Well, okay, so we won't implement it properly. But
well, yeah, okay. Forgetting that. I mean, that's a given, really. But I like the way that DEFRA has told Birmingham, Leeds, Nottingham, Derby, and Southampton that they must introduce clean air zones by 2020. So no real lead up. Get moving, chaps. But also, in most of our cities, our one-way systems, because one of the proposals is that if you have an electrified vehicle, they will allow you to go the opposite direction to traffic on a one-way system. Now, that only works where there is at least 2 lanes or on a one-way system, or I'm hoping that's what they're proposing, and they're not suggesting up single one-way systems.
I would imagine it's where there are multiple lanes and where it's safe to do so.
So how much space is that in British cities? Because ones locally, there's not much that's got 2 lanes or more, and the 2 lanes are generally like that because they're about to be split off.
I think it's actually for those times. So there's one bit, I think it's on the way into Reading, where, for example, it is one way. There are 2 for cars. You can go down the hill, but the lane coming the other way is a bus lane, and buses are allowed to come up the hill. I think it's that kind of setup, as opposed to making brand new lanes and stuff.
In reality, it makes a great headline, but in reality, there's going to be minimal areas where this can actually happen like that.
Oh, for that, yeah, probably. Yeah. It's as I say, it's just like there's some streets in central Oslo where buses and electric cars can go one way, but non-EVs, so hybrids and internal combustion engine cars can go the other way, and that's it. And that's it. That's what you're allowed to do, and it's because there's a bus lane going the other way already.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, something has to happen. This again, it needs to be a more holistic approach.
Yeah, I'm echoing. By the way, it's worth mentioning that yes, it is worth a more holistic approach. I agree with you. It's just worth mentioning that I'm echoing the views of the AA here. By the way, so the chief executive of the AA, is it Mr. King? Yeah, he was saying that many drivers believe low emission zones were just money-making schemes. I think we've voiced that one already this evening. But he pointed out that incentives for electric vehicles, such as use of bus lanes or preferential parking, are good short-term catalysts. See Oslo. But when EVs become mainstream, congestion will still be the big issue. We're still somewhat baffled as to how EVs can realistically be given priority at traffic lights, pointing to one of the more ridiculous proposals in there. But yeah, I sort of got a bit about this and then realised that really it was much, much closer to what I've already seen elsewhere. So there we go.
Right, Alan, let's move on to a new game that we have this week, which is Spot the Difference.
Yes, or Confuse Alan's Father. We thought we had this sussed. I thought I talked him into a Volvo instead of a 7 Series, but no. It's the new 7th generation BMW 5 Series.
Evolution.
It is very much evolution.
Evolution, not revolution. Perfume by BMW.
Oh, I know. It's photocopier design, and I'm slightly disappointed because it's always been possible to tell the difference between a 7, a 5, and a 3. Okay, even from a distance, you can tell the difference between a 7, 5, and 3. But not with this. This is one of these ones where you're going to have to sit them beside each other, which is a bit annoying.
Well, especially considering all the changes that have happened technically to this.
Well, that's it. It's a whole new architecture. It's there's more aluminium and magnesium. Sadly, no mention of that carbon fibre central structure that the 7 Series has. But it is a significant engineering evolution, if not design evolution.
Yes, there was a wonderful quote about the 3 proposals. Did you see that?
No.
This was from Johann Kistler,
right,
project director, and they said there was 3 choices, 3 proposals, and the production car is the middle of these 3. They had a more conservative proposal.
That must have been really dull.
Well,
really dull.
No, I know what it was. It was the last model.
It was like, so what we shall do is change the alloy wheels and the font on the back, and then we will be finished.
Because, I mean, what I've been able to spot the difference of is that the line along the bottom sill kicks up in front of the front door.
And there's a vent. And according to the Autocar article, according to the Autocar article by Greg Cable, which does sound a little bit like it's kind of swallowed it's swallowed the press release.
They are reporting the facts, I think, is what
they are reporting the facts. I'm sure, absolutely. But key elements such as the kidney grill and Hofmeister kit within the C-pillars have been reinterpreted with a more contemporary form. There you go. It's got a bigger grille, makes it look a bit more like a 7 Series. It's by no means a bad-looking car. I mean, that's the thing. It's a good-looking car.
Absolutely. I'm mocking it for the fact that it looks identical almost to the previous model, but it is not an ugly car at all.
No.
Unlike some of their competitors, the back end looks good, I think.
Yeah.
I think they've smartly resolved the fact that it has a boot and tail lights and things like that, and they've combined those all together quite well. I mean, we're going to see them everywhere.
We are, and I would be highly surprised, given this, that if by the middle of next year there isn't one in my father's driveway, unless he decides he can't wait that long. His problem is that he's driven the 7 and he wants all the tech, but he doesn't really want a 7 because it's too big. He even admitted it was too big and bloaty. He might not use the word bloaty. Well,
there's one particular feature I like what they've done, which is the rear bench. They've actually made 3 proper seats as opposed to 2 seats and the sort of bit in the middle.
As someone who lost a pair of expensive sunglasses to the sculpting of the current generation 5 Series rear bench, with 3 people on it, then yes, I completely agree with this. That this is a good thing to do because it has been highly sculpted is really good. But if you do need to take a third person, it becomes
Don't pretend you take 3 across the back if that's the case.
Yeah, quite.
That's my argument with it. So soon, next year, we will see gazillions of these.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll see it at Geneva next year. Is that when they're really showing it off? I don't know. Oh, the car's public debut at Detroit, so that'll be in January. So the first big European showing will probably be Geneva then.
Are you going back?
Pope, balcony, etc.
Okay. Yes, no problem.
Yes.
Woods, bear.
Yes, quite.
All right, let's move on.
That's basically it. So Toyota next, and Toyota have recalled about 340,000 Prius around the world, which sounds like a huge number, but remember that the Prius is really sold globally. So it actually only accounts to about 4,000 cars in the UK. And this is
actually, sorry to just cut you off there.
That's all right.
Considering the timescale that we're talking about, this is cars built between, I think is quite an impressive figure of 4,633.
It is.
An alternatively fueled vehicle.
It is. Well, it's between August 2015 and October 2016. And, yeah, majority, of course, are in Japan and America. But yeah. The fault is with the parking brake and with the handbrake, which is electronic, and it can switch itself off and release itself if in certain circumstances. That circumstance is if you have the park brake enabled and the car is still running, so you've probably got it in neutral, not in park. So if you put it into park, it should be just fine. But Toyota Toyota has a recall.
Yep,
on it,
and they've made a statement that they are yet to be informed that this issue has caused any accidents or anything, that any damages are caused or anyone's been hurt. So they are being quite proactive in this. It's not one of these where things have had to significantly happen before anybody leaps into action. That's not been the case here, so that's good to see.
The car has to be in park, which it does itself when it's switched off. So yeah, it's very, very limited circumstances. Half an hour fix from Toyota. Toyota are adding clips to brake, cable, dust boots to stop debris and water getting in there. So maybe it's something that sensors get damp or something. So there we go.
Right, moving on to Citroën, who we are a fan of on the show, and are showing signs of getting their, and I hate using this phrase, but it's what everybody is using, getting their mojo back.
Well, they are. Yes, you're quite right. I mean, I've seen. I assume, Andrew, that you've seen drives of the new Citroën C3.
One or two, but possibly.
Oh, one or two, possibly. Yes, people were in Barcelona last week trying that, and the feedback would seem to be very good indeed.
Yes, it does. In the world, pictures have not dampened my enthusiasm for the look of it.
No, it looks great.
I think there's some colour combinations which aren't the most flattering, but I think generally overall they've made, and I'm going to sound very old by using this word, but a funky-looking design.
Yeah. The thing is, I said, they were in Barcelona. So those of you who haven't seen pictures from there and stuff will probably be imagining that everybody was driving under beautiful sunshine and wonderful days. And actually, it looked like it was blooming miserable when they were over there. So the lighting was suitably British to show off what it would look like back here, despite the fact that people ended up going to nice parts of Spain.
Yeah, but
that's not actually what we're going to talk about.
No,
that's way off topic.
Yes, it is. But we just quite happy to say that it looks good again.
Yes,
but they're going to be launching direct web deals, which are going to be fixed price. So therefore, there's no haggling. But they're apparently going to be very transparent. Although I don't know what that means by being very transparent. But they are also going to be the same deal you would get if you went into a showroom. Now, what they're basically doing is they're acknowledging that some people find it quite intimidating and not a great environment to go and make a decision about spending a lot of money. So
I hate it. They
are trying to remove that element of it to make it as comfortable an experience and as comfortable a decision as you can. So, I mean, to the point where you will be able to spec your car online, get a price agreed, and then book your test drive and go and visit a showroom that you will get your car from. You'll pay a deposit as well. Go book your test drive and then test it afterwards. After you've gone through all this, and that will be the first time that you get to the dealer environment, and by that point there is going to be no hard sell pressure, or there shouldn't be, because you've effectively signed on the dotted line. So I think that's really quite a good idea. I mean, sounds a little bit like a Tesla model.
Yeah, and if it sounds weird not having a trade-in and stuff on there, well then, if you think that many people are buying their vehicles on, or they're not even buying them, they're leasing their vehicles these days. So it gets to the end of a lease, you just hand it back. There is no, there's no, there is no sort of trade-in value type thing set up to have for many people. So that takes a certain amount out of it, and it streamlines it. But really, what they're doing is they're sort of formalising to an extent what many of us do anyway, which is by the time we go to a dealer, and maybe it's because we're car folk, and I assume if you're listening to this, you're probably a car person, then you do that anyway. You sort of have a pretty good idea what it is you want before you go along. You never sort of go along and say, oh well, I'd like to buy something, but I have no idea what.
You have listened to the interview with Andrew Brady, right?
He's an outlier. Sorry, Andrew, but you are an outlier. Yeah, but he's very different, and he's not going to be buying used Citroens.
No, true. Yes, I was being facetious.
I felt really guilty. I mentioned a Suzuki Wagon-R the other day, and the next thing I know, he's putting up pictures of Suzuki Wagon-Rs on Twitter, and I thought, oh, this could be my fault. But knowing that he'd go to look at a Suzuki Wagon-R and end up with something completely different.
Yes.
Never mind. Anyway. So it's good. Anything that takes the scariness out of car buying, I think, is a good idea. So I actually applaud this. I think this is a very good idea.
Yeah, as long as they can do the financials as though you were haggling, because it's not negotiating. Anyone who says it's negotiating doesn't know what negotiating is. It's haggling at that point.
Well,
yes. As long as they can offer that ability online. Because the other option is that the dealers are now no longer allowed to negotiate or haggle, and the price is the price. What you see in the book is it, because so it'll be interesting to see how they work out that conundrum, because they have admitted that they've still got to iron out some kinks with the dealers to make sure that they're on board with it, because it must be scary for the dealers.
I think that it means that the dealers will have a base price, and I think that I would imagine if you're going this online route, you'll end up getting a cheaper price, because you'll get the base price, whereas people who maybe go into the showroom and don't do this will basically have to start at a higher level and try and work their way down towards this without necessarily knowing what this price is. That comparison, I think, would be very, very interesting.
Yes, because I can see that dealers become basically repair and servicing centres now, not dealers.
Well, that's what they make their money on anyway.
Yeah, so I can see them, that element being removed. If this is a success, you can more see, oh good, we'll have a few examples of the models, because some people will come and test drive, but essentially we can take this much more of the showroom now and turn that into a garage. Yeah, exactly. But let's see what's happening. But it's an interesting, good step, I think.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting concept. Good luck to it. Yeah. Fantastic.
Talking of interesting and good things.
Yeah, it's amazing this has taken so long, really, isn't it?
It is a bit of a shock, actually. When you hear about it, you sort of go, oh yeah, hang on.
Well, and this is that Mitsubishi are basically going to be, they are offering to bundle a ChargeMaster home charge EV charging point with Outlander PHEVs. So basically you buy the Outlander, and included in the price is this is the installation and fitting and basically the charge point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, when somebody says it, is of course.
Yeah, and which just makes loads of sense, because the thing that worries people is whether or not they can actually plug in.
It is cumbersome if you don't have a charging point.
Yeah. And of course, if you do have a charging point, then this home charge kit will charge your Outlander 60% faster than a 13 amp socket, which is quite impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Yes. Really simple. Really obvious. We're amazed it doesn't kind of happen, but there we go. So that's awesome. Which kind of brings us to that part of the show when I do the podcast equivalent of donning a Pudsey Bear suit and shaking a bucket in your faces. Only what we're looking for isn't your money. What we would like is your likes and your star ratings. All we ask of you is a few moments of your time to leave a star rating. Review us via the podcast playing platform of your choice. The most popular and powerful podcasting platform of all is iTunes. So, if possible, a 5-star rating on there is hugely influential. It only takes you a few moments, and it means a lot to us and making us more visible to potential new listeners. Similarly, on other podcast apps such as Stitcher, Downcast, Overcast, and the like, if you could star or thumbs up, a rating means a lot. So, thank you very, very much. Moving on.
Yes, moving on to the UK's first trial of driverless pods in pedestrianised zones. And this is in a very small area of Milton Keynes, actually, this is happening.
Yes.
But there's 40 of these driverless pods, which when you hear it and you see some pictures, you think, oh, hang on, that's just going to be as you said to me earlier, Alan, that's just going to be a Twizy that they've put a laptop in, or just they're sitting there almost ready to grab the steering wheel. But it's not that, is it?
No. It looks like they are actually completely custom-built vehicles. So yeah, they have 2 seats side by side, not one behind the other. But there is a definite resemblance to the Twizy, so I don't know if some parts are reused. But this is actually a project called Catapult. And it's being run by the Lutz Pathfinder project, which is a combination between an Oxford University affiliated robotics company and someone else whom I now can't find, which I've now lost. Yes. Anyway, and them and someone else, as well as Milton Keynes Council. And it's taking place in the centre of Milton Keynes. There's a kind of 0.6 of a mile area there, and these pods can travel up to 15 miles an hour, all on their lonesome. Around there. There's a really good video on the Autocar story that will be linked to in the show notes, which is worth 5 minutes of your time just to watch it. The pods, and there are different designs of pod. Because some are definitely sleeker than others. Because some of them have a real sort of man in shed must make futuristic looking view. The one in the video does, but then the one in the Autocar picture at the top,
does look quite decent.
Does look a lot like a Twizy.
But that sort of looks to me as though it's a. Oh, hang on. I don't need a Boris. It's sort of like I don't need a Boris bike, but I need something to get me to the other end. It's that sort of utilitarian look to it that's still a little bit fun, but isn't. It isn't a massive vehicle. That's the sort of feeling I get from that. That I could easily see those on the streets, if you see what I mean, and maybe had that use a cycle lane. They're a little bit wide for that, but that's the sort of thing I can see them doing.
And they're very much in the pedestrian. The video shows them very much trundling in one of the pedestrianised areas of Milton Keynes. So they have a top speed of about 15 miles an hour, but they're likely to be travelling slower than that. So don't expect to see them on the dual carriageways of Milton Keynes negotiating the roundabouts. This is very much down towards Milton Keynes Centre and around the station and that kind of area. So yeah, I mean, I'm tempted to try and sort of go and see if I can have a little look.
Well, they're desperate for people to chuck themselves out in front of them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, take one for the team, Alan.
I would love to. Yeah, actually, that actually sounds like quite good fun to me.
Well, the way that the front of them are angled, I think you'll just be gently swept along rather than injure yourself in any way.
Yes, yeah, I think just sort of gentle prod out the way rather than anything else. But no, I think that's fantastic. It's interesting. It's happening in public space, not on the roads, for a change, and it is a very British initiative in there. As I say, worth going to the Autocar article and worth watching the video.
Yes. Should we move on to another partnership?
Yeah. Sorry, I stole your story just there. I've just realised.
No, that's okay.
Suzuki and Toyota are looking to partner up to develop green and safety tech.
Yes, we had the announcement that they're talking about partnering, which I found a little bit odd.
Yeah. Well, given how interdependent many of the Japanese motor companies are anyway, it is a little bit of a surprise that they're actually announcing it. But yeah, it doesn't look like it's one buying the other or anything like that. It's just that they're looking to try and conduct lots of the kind of R&D testing together. I think, yeah.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways. I mean, they both need to develop the technology. Suzuki are clearly brilliant at making very small vehicles, which this stuff's going to be tested on a lot. So they're great at doing that sort of thing. So it makes a lot of sense for Toyota to partner up, because there's been so many partnerships between Japanese and other car manufacturers from around the world that have gone down the pan for various reasons. That it seems sensible that two companies that share the same cultural basis hopefully won't have those issues. And not that I know that that's what the problem was, but that wouldn't have made things easier. I mean, if you've got bluff Europeans or Americans coming in and trying to tell people what to do, then okay, we bluff back, but other people will get offended by that sort of thing. So hopefully they can do something with this, because all cars are going to get much more technical. We know that. We can see that. That's happening day by day. More announcements are coming out. So the sooner that it can come into small vehicles and be practical in a small small city car, the better for everyone, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree completely. So it gives Toyota, it gives Suzuki a bit of a boost in that kind of way. But Toyota do have quite a lot of, they actually collaborate quite a lot with other manufacturers. And the example that we think of, I guess straight away, is the
Ding! I know you've been fighting that off for some time, haven't you?
I have not, actually. Toyota partner with with quite a lot of companies. So not just the Subaru BRZ Toyota GT86, but the forthcoming, possibly not a Supra coupe that's expected to be a BMW Z5 or similar is another one there. So I'm now trying to think of others. So there's link-ups with PSA around. No, link-ups with PSA around vans as well, and as well as within the Japanese market. There's lots of kind of cross-branding that goes on there. So yeah, you thought I was only going to have one example, didn't you?
Well, you were doing your best to make it clear you only had one example for quite some time. Right, let's move on. Let's move on to, as we are talking about technology and advancement.
Has been a super tech show today, actually. And yeah, somebody recently asked me, probably because I was mentioning Qualcomm Halo, when we're actually going to start to see the first wireless charging vehicles on the road, and the answer is 2018. As ever with new technology, Mercedes-Benz S-Class tends to get there first. So the Mercedes-Benz S550e will offer wireless charging. Wireless charging, basically. So you'll be able to park in your garage above the sort of primary coil on the floor, this panel on the floor of your garage, and if you go in, park above that, and then you will actually be able to just charge your car through thin air.
Okay, now a lot of modern technology, as far as I'm concerned, is witchcraft.
Mm-hmm. This is witchcraft.
But how does wireless charging work? I've heard it mentioned, and I've seen it mentioned in cars. I've been in a couple of cars where you could wirelessly charge your phone if your phone was that way inclined. But I don't understand how we can do it. You know, I'm a very simple soul, as we all know. I like to see a cable come out of a plug, go into the mechanism I want charged, and then everything is right with the world.
I believe it is all to do with magnetic induction and coils of wire and basically witchcraft. What you're doing now is you're making me acknowledge out loud, so that I have to follow up on it. The fact that I have an invite to Qualcomm headquarters to actually have all this explained to me in great detail.
Oh well, that would be awesome if you could do that, Alan, and then let us all know.
But in the meantime, they are looking at Mercedes-Benz are looking to roll this out, possibly as an option to begin with.
But that makes adoption, doesn't it, so much easier for people. I mean, a lot of the car companies nowadays are talking about making things as simple as possible. You know, the Outlander PHEV there. Oh, we'll install. If you don't have one, we'll install and pay for the charger ourselves. So you've got that. So it's as simple as possible. You don't buy the car and then have to get something else. No, we'll do all that for you. It's doing things as simply as possible, and I think that's the best way to gain adoption from, because we've hit early adopters, haven't we?
Yes.
You know, we're into the phase where we're moving towards getting the general public to adopt this. So it's working out different strategies in which to make that as a no-brainer, really. So it's not a decision. It's just, oh yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, exactly. Supposedly, by the way, if people are wondering about losses and efficiencies, then according to Qualcomm's very own press release, then they're saying that the conductive charging is about 90% efficiency, which is comparable just plugging in. Basically, it's about 90% efficient as well. So it is comparable there. I have heard and I've been present when the correct numbers and times and stuff have all been mentioned at Formula E earlier in the year. But I'm unlike everyone around me, because I wasn't expecting it to be a little press conference thing. I didn't have a notepad with me, so I don't have a note of them all. So yes, I shall follow up on this story at any rate.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I've seen it done, but let's try and see it in a way that I can share it more easily with you guys.
That would be handy. And I might stop calling it witchcraft.
Yes. I think that Qualcomm would prefer that you stopped calling it witchcraft as well. To be perfectly honest,
just call it technology.
Yeah. So meanwhile, whilst I was on a jolly and I saw things being demonstrated, last week we recorded on Monday because you were on a jolly. Do you want to tell us a bit about it? I think it was a jolly.
Incredibly hard work. No, it was a lovely time, actually. Second launch of a car for myself and for the podcast. Mm-hmm. We were the guests of the kind people of Hyundai. We were based in Liverpool and allowed to explore some roads in North Wales and Cheshire to test out the Ioniq, which is their first mainstream, alternatively fueled, drive-trained vehicle aimed at Europe. Now, the format of this was that we rolled up in the morning of day one. We were given information about the cars, told what we were going to test. Then we were given some very brief presentations explaining what the day would be and what it meant to Hyundai and things like that. And then we got to go out on set routes to experience what these sort of mid-sized family cars are like. And we got to experience all types of road because we've left from Liverpool, near the city centre in Liverpool, and went along motorways and dual carriageways and A roads and B roads. And I would like to thank a friend of the show, Richard Gooding, for partnering up with me for the 2 days.
Poor sucker.
Yes.
Rich, I feel so sorry for you, mate. I really do.
Yes, I did, but...
World's worst passenger.
I was quite good.
Really?
Yeah, I only screamed once.
So the advantage for you for some of this actually was that you're quite familiar, because I'm a million miles away from around there, but you're quite familiar with some of those North Wales and Cheshire roads, and you were showing off a bit about that last week.
Yeah, pretty much. So most of the roads we were on, I know, pretty well. Yes, I was happy about that because I knew some of these roads could be driven. It could be quite a challenge. Considering we're talking about an electrified vehicle and a hybrid, you don't normally think of a sporty drive. Mm-hmm. So I was looking forward to this. But, right, I'll let you know. There was 2 vehicles there.
Yeah, that's good. I was about to ask you about that. Can you explain why you're saying there was an electric car and a hybrid?
Okay, so
that people are aware of the Ioniq.
Is going to be a one-body style, but it's going to have 3 drivetrains. At launch at the end of the month, it's going to have a hybrid and an electrified vehicle. The plug-in hybrid comes next year. Mm-hmm. Richard and I started out the day. On day 1, we had the electrified vehicle.
Oh, okay.
And then on day 2, for the morning, we drove the hybrid on a different route. Mm-hmm. With each of the one of the things that became clear from Hyundai is, one, they're very proud of this because it's the first vehicle to have the 3 drivetrains, and through those 3 drivetrains, they feel they have everybody's needs covered. Mm-hmm. So they think that plug-in hybrids will be more of a fleet vehicle, whereas the electrified vehicle will be more of a private, but it's not going to be exclusive. And the hybrid is a nice mix for those who need all of that. Mm-hmm. So the electrified vehicle comes as a premium or a premium SE, and the hybrids come as an SE, a premium, or a premium SE, which mirrors what Hyundai does anyway. So this is, if you know the Hyundai brand and you're already a customer of them, this is not alien to you, okay. And that was something they were really, really keen to stress with us, is they've designed this, and the whole idea behind it is to be as normal as possible.
So is this going to start?
They see these drivetrains. Sorry to just cut you off there, but they see these drivetrains as actually becoming normal, mm-hmm. with the adoption rates that have been going on in the last 5 years.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess that whenever you're giving the different levels there, that goes from Hyundai relatively well spec'd to absolutely loaded.
Yes.
It's the kind of scale that we're talking about.
Yes, there's going to be a blog post that we will link to in the show notes to do with this. I'm not going to fill the show notes with all this information, and in that I will have details of the various cool. what the different trims mean.
Right.
But basically you've got lots to. I didn't know I needed that.
Yes. So the question that everyone's going to be thinking, or that normal people will ask first, is: so on the EV, what was the range like?
Well, we had it was a 70-80 mile route.
Right, that's pretty chunky.
But we stopped halfway for lunch and more presentations to give us further details and a chance to chat to some of the more technical side of the teams and understand what they were doing, as well as the preferred supplier for charging points, which is PodPoint.
All right, okay.
And PodPoint got the opportunity to do a presentation to explain their involvement in the project and how they're very excited by it as well. And I can't remember off the top of my head, and I haven't got my notes next to me, but we weren't at halfway using up the charge, and we had. What was interesting, actually, is this had 3 drive modes.
Right.
So Eco, Normal, and Sport.
Sport?
Yes.
In an electric car?
Sport. And it actually made a difference. Apart from the dials went red and you saw a rev counter instead of the speed, and it changed the display. But I was really surprised. Pleasantly. Very pleasantly surprised. But yeah, so we arrived back at base after all that, and we still had over 30 miles range, and we weren't going for Richard Orcock levels of feather-footedness. Richard and I were driving it normally. Richard has much more experience of driving electrified vehicles than I do, so his style was a little bit more geared to it than mine, but it was actually good fun to drive around some of the twisty bits because of the fact you pressed your foot and you went, and there was no. And this sounds obvious to people who've driven lots of electrified vehicles, but you're not changing gears, and you're not wasting energy in that. Afraid you are going, and then you're at speed very quickly, and you stay at speed. It's not. You're not having to do other things to get there.
That's what I found about the hydrogen as well, by the way, because it is essentially an electric vehicle. It's just a different battery setup, or different energy storage. It's exactly what you've just said, and that's one of the reasons I really liked driving that.
And through it, I mean, because the interior was such a normal. It was. I mean, I've been lucky enough to drive a Hyundai not so long ago, so it was clearly a Hyundai on the inside. Everything was intuitively where you expected it to be. The things did what there was no buttons stuck in daft positions or anything like that. It was all exactly where you would anticipate it to be, and it worked very well. And everything worked as you wanted it to work. So the sat nav was great. The commands on that were perfectly fine. Because I've been in cars recently, and these are new cars now, where the sat nav, the inbuilt sat nav, has been awful.
Well, when I had the hydrogen, the fuel cell vehicle, it was commented to me. Goodness, this feels old now that I've been using the Ioniq one for a while. I think that's the wording that was used. But yeah. So yeah, I'd heard that it was a pretty good system in there. So that's the full electric one. The hybrid, just quickly, it's actually got quite a large engine, hasn't it? It's got a 1.6 litre petrol.
Yes, it does, with a 6-speed. They've tweaked their dual clutch.
Oh, right.
Transmission, so it's a 6-speed one, so it's geared more for fuel efficiency, but apparently also for driving as well. So
it's not a CVT.
The best blended. No, not in that.
Oh, wow!
The best blended version. And in the hybrid, the regeneration is only at one. You're at a fixed level. You can't adjust that, which you could in the electrified. You could change to much stronger regeneration to a gentler regeneration.
Okay. I'm genuinely surprised it's a gearbox. It was.
It's an auto, but there's no flappy pedals or anything like that. So. But what you actually have in the EV is it's a shift by wire, so you basically have buttons. So there's no automatic lever that you put into drive or anything like that. So it meant that in front of the end of the transmission tunnel at the bottom of the center console, there's this huge bucket where normally the transmission tunnel would carry on, or because you've got the linkages and everything else from changing gear.
Yeah.
There was none of that because it was by a wire. So it's just this, oh, hang on, there's this massive hole that I can put stuff in.
You managed to put your handbag in it then? Yeah.
Yes, I did. It was a perfect size for my handbag, which I had managed to coordinate with so that it would go lovely with my eyeshadow.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah, normally you only keep that for the weekends.
Yes, I know. Normally it's Friday.
So generally, right. I'm so stumped as to what to ask next. But so basically, did it feel normal?
Well, there was differences between the two, obviously, and obviously I'd only spent a day or 3/4 of a day in the electrified vehicle, but I noticed the fact that there was a petrol engine, or there was an internal combustion engine in the hybrid.
Okay.
And the EV was so refined, I think, because a certain portion of it is because there wasn't a vibrating lump up front. But the wind noise and tyre noise and all that sort of stuff was minimal in it anyway. They've put extra coating on the windscreen, I think, and I believe they've got better sound insulation on the side windows and things like that. And they've thought about that as well, because they understand the expectation of, if you drive an electrified vehicle, is that people expect it to be silent.
Yeah.
I think the biggest compliment I can give the EV is that if I got one to try out for any length of time, I would not tell the horde that it's electrified, and I'd see how long it took anyone to twig, because it felt so normal. As you said with the hydrogen car, this is so normal. And that's what it just felt like, a normal car. Okay, I didn't have a gear lever, but I press a button. So some cars have funny looking buttons now, or things that raise up a dashboard or whatever. So that's not really a leap. But the rest of it felt just like a normal car, and you didn't feel that you were making. I didn't feel I was making any compromises on the route I was driving, because I knew we were well within the range, and stuff like that. So I wasn't worried about how I drove it so much.
So, yeah, I'm interested. Sorry, I'm waiting to hear what you say, because I know that you've been muttering that, well, car change time would be very, very tempted by an electric vehicle. I'm assuming that this has helped sway you towards that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Did you want to hesitate for a bit longer before you say that?
No, not at all. Not at all. The boot was a good size. The plug-in hybrid, I think, would absolutely suit us down to the ground. If plug-in hybrids could get to the 100-mile type range on electrified, it would be a no-brainer for me.
Okay. Yeah, so only using
details like money, but
so only
But with the hybrid, having said that, Richard and I drove it, and we weren't being particularly economically minded, but we weren't racing it everywhere. We did chuck it in sport, and again, we could tell there was a difference. But we still ended up with 64 point something miles per gallon by the time we came back, and we got slightly lost.
Did you?
Wrong turning.
You took the wrong turning. Okay.
Yeah, it was my fault.
Right.
It was all my fault.
It was always going to be your fault for getting lost.
Yeah, well, yes, but it really was my fault.
Oops.
We got called. Hi, just checking you're all right.
Oh.
Yeah, it says 7 minutes on the sat nav. Oh, good. Okay, we'll see you soon.
Oopsie. Oh well, never mind.
And we still ended up with just over half of the battery on the hybrid left.
No, that's pretty good going.
Through just the way it regenerated and stuff. So
So generally, it felt like a normal car, but more refined. Whilst you're on manufacturer-defined routes, you felt that they were a suitable mix, and they covered...
But, yeah, okay, we were. But having said that, the roads themselves, some of them were shocking.
Oh, right, okay, so... Yeah.
So we got to experience, a full gambit of some really poorly surfaced roads through to some really nice surfaced roads. So, I mean, okay, whilst the limit of the route was defined for us, there was not a lot they could do about the surfaces.
Aye.
And having said that, I think it coped really well with changes in surfaces and, various obstacles in roads and things like that.
So, one last question then, Andrew.
Okay.
Were there shopping bag hooks in the boot?
There were.
Hey, there we go. I knew you'd have checked.
There were. And I was applauded for searching for them.
It's sad. Yes, I have a confession to make to you about stuff in the boot at some point, which I will tell you off air, and then you can ridicule me for it on air at some point in the future.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
okay, but thank you to the people at Hyundai for inviting me down, because I thoroughly enjoyed that, and I think it should sell well.
I reckon that there's a market in there. I reckon that, and I cannot base this on any fact at all, but I've seen the Ioniq in the flesh. There was a display of them. Not that Hyundai are pushing it or anything, but there was a display, and people could have. You could. I couldn't. I tried. I asked if I could get a shot, but I wasn't a Norwegian resident, so I wasn't allowed. In Oslo last week, and they had a whole load that they were letting the general public drive, with someone in the passenger seat, of course, and a big display of like the drivetrain and all this kind of stuff. Unfortunately, most of the stuff was in Norwegian, so it meant nothing to me either. But really, really pushing it, really good-looking vehicle. And I was looking at it and thinking, I'll be amazed if they're not after some of that Prius, Uber, taxi, minicab market.
Well, they've
because if I were them, I would be.
By the 3 drivetrains, I mean, I'm not saying that I've swallowed the marketing stuff hook, line, and sinker, but I can see why they feel confident that by going for the 3 different drivetrains, that they do have a viable market that is only going to get bigger. And I think it's very clever for them to have designed a car that is able to take all 3.
Cool.
So yeah, no, I think it's a good looking car. It's a good size, even with batteries and all the rest of it. Boots are big, decent sized. Seats and space in the back is good. It is a proper viable car that just happens to be driven by these different drivetrains.
Yeah, which I think is a pretty good summary of that, isn't it? Proper viable car that just happens to be driven by 3 different drivetrains.
Yes.
Cool.
I wish I'd thought of it earlier.
Yes. Well, let me try repeated it so that it can work its way into stuff. Yeah, fantastic. Sounds like a good one. I am somewhat jealous, and as I say, whilst you were there, I was actually trying to angle myself into a drive, but just couldn't make it happen in Oslo.
You have to work on your Norwegian.
Yes. Hello. Which is not what Norwegian
right,
sounds
well, I
like
think we're
all.
nearly done now.
We are nearly. It's just one last story that I noticed the end of last week, and I've just clicked on it, probably broken everything. There. Which was on Jalopnik, and David Tracy of Jalopnik came to the UK not so long ago, and he declared that driving in England took years off his life.
Well, no, come on. I think we need to be a bit more specific, because where he drove is not driving in England.
Well, no. Well, it is driving in England.
He's in a very specific part of England, which has its own unique challenges, I think is the best way to put it.
They're not that unique. We've got little tiny wiggly roads everywhere else. It's not just Devon and Cornwall.
Yes, but you're your hedges don't start with 6 foot of soil and then the hedges on top of it.
Not always. Sometimes. Anyway, it's quite a good little article on Jalopnik. It's worth a wee read. I called about on Twitter, and other people agreed with me, and then I did, in the interest of fairness, point out that in the US there are 4-way stop signs and the ability to turn on red traffic signals in some places but not others, and those are absolutely terrifying to some of us from the UK. But he just can't get over how narrow the lanes can be here in the UK. But it's good. It's an interesting little. It's an interesting little write up by someone from abroad. Who, okay, there's some cliches about roundabouts, but other than that, it's refreshingly new on that one. So,
yeah, I mean,
I thought it was actually quite a good article.
What it reminded me, because I was down in this area for quite a bit of the summer holidays, actually. What it reminded me is there are many people in Britain who feel this going into the southwest or places that are more countryside-y and have equally difficult times. So I don't think it's necessarily just someone from abroad is challenged by the way our roads are set up. I think we as a nation, we struggle in some of these more narrower roads. I can think of 2 who nearly removed wing mirrors this summer.
Oh, right, okay. Well, yes, it's the best that you didn't.
Really.
So yeah. Anyway, it's a good little story. Worth 10 minutes of your time. Nicely written piece on Jalopnik just there. And I think that brings us to the end of this week's show, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
End of this week's show. God, proud. Anyway, to very quickly round off. Don't forget that between now and next week, you can give us any feedback and share your thoughts with the show at Motoring Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, on Facebook, and on the contact page of motoringpodcast.com, which is the hub of all our activities. Don't forget that as well as the show notes this week, there will also be a quick write-up of Andrew's Hyundai Ioniq drives up there as well. Don't forget also to leave a review and ratings on iTunes or however your podcast app lets you do such a thing. It really does matter. Andrew, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Best way will be via Twitter, even though I have been a little bit quiet this week. I do apologise, everybody. But via Twitter, where if you search for @CrackWindscreen, you will find me. And if people want to get in touch with you, Alan, what is the best way?
Twitter as well. I also have been quite quiet. It's been a little bit mobbed this week. And I'm at AJP Bradley. So, yeah. We'll be back next week. But until then, I've been Alan Bradley.
I've been Andrew Clews.
And safe motoring.